Reality Transurfing, Book 4, Ruling Reality, by Vadim Zeland. Part 1, Dancing with the Shadows. Declaration of Intention. Declaration of Intention. Up to now, we have only spoken about how to get rid of a pendulum and not be subject to its influence. But is it possible to get something good from it? Well, generally speaking, any dream is only realized in the end with the help of pendulums. But is it possible to get something good from it? Well, generally speaking, any dream is only realized in the end with the help of pendulums. After all, we all live and work in structures of various kinds, and there is no escaping this fact. The only question is, how do you make the structure help realize your dream instead of taking it away? Then again, are there any ways of influencing pendulums directly? Almost certainly there are none. You cannot tame a pendulum, and you won't be able to control it either. However, you can nevertheless use the pendulum's features for your own benefit. Did it ever occur to you why people propose toasts when sitting at the table in the company of friends? Is there a practical side to this, or is it a purely symbolic ritual? It turns out there definitely is logic behind it. Folk wisdom sometimes gives rise to traditions which resemble senseless prejudice. But people unconsciously follow such established rules, unaware that these rules represent a way of controlling reality. You see, alcoholic beverages, as was demonstrated above, represent an energy credit. You get an extra boost of free energy, and your energy goes up a level. And since free energy is nothing else than the energy of will, then depending on what your will is aimed at, you will get the appropriate result. For example, if you drink out of despair, reality will fall into an even darker pit. However, if you drink because you're happy, then there will be even more reasons for celebration. And if you mix spirits with a sense of worry and fear, then life will take a turn for the worse, and you will find yourself in a place where you truly have something to fear. The same mechanism applies in all other cases. Thought emission, magnified by an energy surge, will transfer you to lifelines with corresponding qualities. The pendulum, giving you the credit, acts as an amplifier of the energy of intention. The pendulum itself, no matter how much it swings back and forth, has no access to external intention, and therefore is unable to materialize a sector in the space of variance. Reality is subject only to living beings, so when you propose a toast, you're fixating the direction of your intention. Do you understand what's happening here? The energy of the creditor pendulum usually carries negative features, but human beings endowing this energy with goodwill change its polarity. Therefore, proposing toast is far from an empty ritual, but a declaration of intention. However, despite the beneficial effect of toasts, they all contain one and the same mistake, and it's a bugger. Wishes are usually uttered for the future. The energy supplied by a pendulum is merely transformed into positive energy, and it has no effect on reality. The things you wish for remain somewhere out there in an unattainable perspective, and this is quite natural. After all, the mirror is unable to reproduce the future. It only ever reflects the present. So then, what follows from all this? Well, it follows that you should propose all toasts in the present tense. They will sound very odd, but they will work. For example, don't say, "will be something something." Say, "we are" instead. So your toasts will go something like this. We've got perfect health. We've won. Those who are not with us are always with us. Lucky are those at sea. Our wishes come true. Luck is always with us, and so on. A declaration of intention of this kind will immediately start attracting your wishes into today's reality instead of putting them off to the tomorrow that never comes. However, you shouldn't assume that with the help of alcoholic beverages you can easily turn your desires into reality. As you now understand, this coin has a flip side. The bigger the credit, the higher the interest, not to mention that with the increase of a loan, a person's consciousness, and hence his intention too, is displaced to an area in the space of variance which does not correspond to reality. And there can be no mention of conducting similar manipulations with drugs. Transforming a pendulum's negative energy into positive energy doesn't always work and is not something everyone can do. Black magic is based on the same principle. An evil magician calls on dark powers in order to use their energy to enhance his hostile intention. In general, taking out credit from a pendulum is not lucrative in any respect. However, if you do it anyway, you should stick to the rule. When hanging on a pendulum's hook, think only pleasant thoughts. Take the Transurfing pendulum, for example. It will undoubtedly bring you no harm at all, but the declaration of intention can significantly increase its effectiveness. Every time you encounter information about transurfing, remind yourself that it helps you achieve your goals. A fixation like that will send the vector of the flow of variance straight to where it should be. You should do the same with any other pendulum, even if it has absolutely nothing to do with your life. For example, when watching a TV series or a TV show, you are exchanging energy with the pendulum in one way or another. While watching the action, keep a goal slide ready, that is, the image of what you want to get. In the flow of information, you can always find a connection, something that is related to your goal, even in the slightest way. For example, if you see the main characters of a soap opera driving around in a supercar, immediately state the fact that you intend to buy something similar yourself. On no account should you think about bad things when obtaining credit from a pendulum. Worrying thoughts, pressing problems, despair, fear, all this will be amplified by the energy boost you are receiving. Here are some examples. During a smoking break, think about a forthcoming success, as if it is already in your pocket. Or let's say a commercial is urging you to enjoy the aroma of a cup of coffee. It would be better if you could use that moment to enjoy the good fortune that is always with you, no matter what happens. You haven't forgotten about the principle of coordination, have you? For example, when you're smoking or drinking coffee, instead of letting your thoughts wastefully run their course, declare the following intention. Things are just great because I am shaping my reality with my intention, and I know how it should be done. Tea ceremonies are also arranged according to the same principle. Praying before meals and dedicating food to God are also customary for many folk groups. However, having given God his share, you shouldn't forget about yourself. If you feed yourself with love and care, repeating something along the lines of, "Eat, eat, my darling, get well," then you may achieve the most incredible and unexpected effect. Quite possibly some of your illnesses will go away. Your body will be surprised at first, but will later rejoice and blossom, like a flower that is being cared for in a loving and attentive manner. The important thing is to service yourself with sincere interest, love, and words such as, "If you don't feed yourself, no one will." A declaration of this type contains enormous power. If previously you were indifferent to yourself or treated yourself with distaste, then such a ritual will soon bring about amazing changes. You don't believe me? Try it out. In the light of everything said, one might think that declaration of intention could be used in games with insidious pendulums, such as the stock exchange, casino, or the races. Actually, why not? The probability of success will increase if at the moment of investment, as well as during the game, you continue to play the slide of a certain win. It is not easily done, but it is possible to achieve. As a rule, the thoughts of a player all come down to the following wording. Winning would be great, but what if I lose? No, I have to win regardless. This time I'll get lucky. Well, none of this is good enough. Here you've got an array of excess potentials, the desire to win, the fear of losing, thoughts about how to win, and the hope of success. You have to get rid of any discussion, emotions, and hopes of success. The only thing remaining should be the undoubted and dispassionate decisiveness to have a win. I am a winner. That is your declaration. I am a winner. That is what your declaration should be, and it should be made without any reasons why, stripped of any conditions or exclamation marks. If you manage to achieve this state of dispassionate and undoubted decisiveness to have, your prospects of success will go up dramatically. However, that's not quite the end of it. In one and the same gambling session, you can achieve success once, twice, 3 times, but this cannot go on forever because everyone is human and no one is able to maintain a perfectly low level of importance for a long time. Any gambling activity is an energy credit that may unnoticeably turn into an induced transfer with a sad finale. Nevertheless, these issues were examined in detail in the first book on transurfing, so we won't dwell on them here. One might say that there is only one way to escape paying interest on the energy credit, to exit the game in time. And not just to exit, but to completely get rid of even the tiniest connection with the pendulum, to turn off the emission of thoughts on its frequency. In other words, for a period of time, you have to switch your attention to something else, and not even think about the game. This is the only way, having stopped swinging together with the pendulum, that you can save yourself from the funnel of induced transfer. Once the connection has been completely broken, you can begin a new gambling session. But in general, playing games with pendulums is very dangerous and can have an unpredictable outcome, because not a single person on the planet has the necessary dispassionate decisiveness to have. Basically, you're not even playing a game, but you are dancing with shadows. A pendulum is an invisible, cold, and merciless shadow. It is not conscious and does not have an intention. It doesn't have a soul or a mind, the counteraction of which gives rise to emotions, impulses, and weaknesses. You will never be able to get the better of a pendulum, just as you are unable to outrun your shadow. The pendulum is dispassionately watching you, blowing hot and cold, knowing that there is no escape for you. It is not possible to conquer the shadow in a struggle, and there is no point in playing with it. What should you do then? You should either abandon the dangerous game or start your own with the aim of becoming some pendulum's favorite. That's what would make sense. By trying to win over a pendulum, you are only chasing your shadow. All aspirations towards winning and the accompanying emotional experiences are subject to internal intention, which always blindly leads you to what is in front of your nose without seeing any further beyond. With the aim of ending this pointless chase, you should stop, look around, and start moving on your own. That's when roles will change. You will no longer pursue the pendulum, and the pendulum will start following you. Whoever abandons the narrow-minded inner intention will become the master of the game, the lead dancer in the dances with the shadows. In order to initiate your game, you have to allow yourself to be yourself. Your game is the shaping of your own reality the way you want it to be. You can do it. All you need is to take this privilege for yourself. You are the only one to give away or take away your privileges. You need to realize that. However, allowing yourself to be the lead is not all. Stars are born on their own, but pendulums are the ones to light them. Even if you are King Solomon or the creator of an absolutely stunning masterpiece, no one will ever find out unless a powerful pendulum picks you up. No matter how wonderful your creation, it won't become popular simply because of that. In culture, science, and art, prominent works become the object of interest of a wide audience only if a new pendulum is created or if it is of benefit to an old one. In order to become a star in your area of work, you have to use the qualities of a pendulum. Did it ever occur to you why works that were hugely popular back in the day are no longer a success, despite the fact that they still have their distinguishing features? There are plenty of cultural achievements with magnificent features that could satisfy any number of modern needs, but in our time these achievements are not popular because pendulums that shone before have almost or entirely become extinguished. Pendulums are the ones creating popularity and fashion. Otherwise, why would a large mass of people suddenly become keen on one and the same subject? Let's examine the phenomenon of fashion by using the examples of two great bands such as the Beatles and ABBA. Both achieved worldwide acclaim not because they created something fundamentally new and particularly outstanding. Everything they did had already been done before them. On the contrary, other much less famous people were the first to pioneer rock and disco music. So how do you then explain the phenomenal success of these two bands? The start of the Beatles' career was a process of many trials and continual failure. At first, the quartet was a rather ordinary band, just one out of quite a few at the time. They didn't even know how to play well. Their professionalism never reached levels higher than playing at your local pub, where they did, in fact, perform. True, the Beatles were very talented, but that's not quite enough in show business. Old pendulums are always trying as best they can to put newcomers as far away as possible. By 1962, the band had already set a personal style and had produced songs which would soon rock the whole world. But that would happen later. Meanwhile, people weren't paying any attention to the Beatles, although they had a handful of faithful fans. That year, the quartet unsuccessfully haunted the thresholds of recording companies and kept getting rejected. It seemed that a band like that stood no chance of getting above the club level. Hunter Davies, in an authorized Beatles biography, writes, "And yet we continued to believe that we'd make it and become number one," George Harrison said. When things were worse than ever and we had absolutely no opportunities in sight, we performed a special ritual. John would shout, "Fellas, where are we headed?" We'd all yell back, "Up, Johnny, to the very top." "To the very top of what?" "To the very top of the top, Johnny." But it wasn't this determination that brought them success. In 1963, they nevertheless managed to release their first small record, a single. Unexpectedly, it reached number one in the charts. This was their first noticeable achievement. However, no one viewed it as anything major. The press interpreted the single's success as the flash of a small, short-lived star, and missed the sensation. After this record, there was once again the calm of living in obscurity. But as it turned out, it was the lull before the storm. Half a year later, Beatlemania took England by storm, and then almost the whole world. Every country, writes Hunter Davies, witnessed a mass psychosis that only recently was unimaginable and that would hardly ever happen again. Today, no one believes it, and yet yesterday it was all true. Something similar repeated itself in the history of ABBA. In 1972, this brilliant quartet didn't even make it through the semifinals in order to perform at the Eurovision Song Contest. Nevertheless, in 1974, they finally managed to get through and performed at the contest, and to everyone's surprise, gained a deafening victory, leaving all other contestants far behind. However, back then, no one attached much importance to this. Bands with the label Eurovision on them were considered to be the flavor of the month, no more than one-hit wonders. Once again, as in the case of the Beatles, there was a temporary calm, but not even a half a year passed before the world was taken over by a new, powerful wave, only this time it was ABBA mania. In both stories, there are two clear patterns. First off, popularity develops by following a wave-like trajectory. First, there is a rather continuous period of being in the shadows, during which a small but stable fan base is formed. Then follows an unexpected rise, after which comes a period of calm, as if the wave has rushed back from the shore to gather strength. And finally, following the period where nothing happens, a great wave of success suddenly descends on the band. Popularity may stay at high levels for some time, but then the wave will inevitably die out, because new pendulums will emerge, driving former pendulums into the background. The most interesting feature about gaining popularity is that songs that later become brilliant hits are simply not appreciated while the band is still at the first stage of being in the shadows. People listen to them but do not pay them any attention. And then suddenly comes a moment when the same thing starts giving off a completely different, unusual impression of novelty and originality. The sound acquires a hint of something very stylish and hip, and somehow everyone simultaneously manages to arrive at the unanimous conclusion that this is just awesome. But where does this general sense of novelty and stylishness come from? After all, even back in 1962, the Beatles had a Beatles sound, so why didn't anyone take note of them? And why didn't anyone appreciate ABBA in 1972? After all, their songs were the same. Why did they cause such excitement in 1975 and not at any time before or after? This is explained by the fact that each era has its own distinctive feature, sound, hint, in a word, charisma. However, a new era doesn't happen by itself. It is attracted by the intention of people as a cloud in the space of variance, and a pendulum stabilizes this collective intention. First, a small group of fans is formed. Every one of them emits thoughts on the I like it frequency. A pendulum is born, which unites and synchronizes the thoughts of admirers in one direction. We like it. In the space of variance, which, as you know, contains everything, it is a particular area of sectors that have one quality in common. Everyone likes this. The collective intention of the first group of fans directs the movement of physical realization in the direction of this area. As a result, after a while, reality takes on a shade of a new era. There are more and more fans, and the pendulum grows stronger. Finally, the collective intention exceeds critical mass, and the cloud with the charisma of the new era covers the entire physical reality. This cloud, attracted by the united intention of a pendulum's adherents, is what creates the special charisma of new times. Now that you know the mechanism behind new trends, you can go ahead, without looking back at the rest of the world, and use your rightful privilege to be yourself. This is the only way you will be able to realize your chance and announce your unique individuality to the whole world. Pendulums cannot stand unique individuals. They will be forced to make a star out of you. Stop chasing the shadow. Start moving on your own, and then pendulums will have nothing left but to start following you. You are capable of becoming the one setting the tone, because the qualities of your soul are unique, and in the space of variance, an individual deluxe cloud has been prepared for you. It is waiting for you. So what are you waiting for? Announce the declaration of your intention. End segment. Reality Transurfing, Book 4, Ruling Reality by Vadim Zeland. Part 1, Dancing with the Shadows. Summary. Summary. The goal and meaning of any living being's life is to control its reality. Boredom as such does not exist. There is only a constant and insatiable thirst to control reality. Appraisals based on comparison give rise to polarization. The equilibrium forces remove polarization by clashing opposites together. An object or a quality that receives special importance attracts objects with opposite qualities. The Pendulum Rule?
Do as I do.
The Transurfing Rule? Let yourself be you and let others be different. Polarization is eliminated when you apply the Transurfing Rule. Awareness. Right now I am not sleeping, and I am clearly aware of what I am doing, why I am doing it, and why I am doing it this way and not any other. The first Pendulum Rule. A pendulum strives to increase conflict energy. The second Pendulum Rule. A pendulum does everything to stabilize its structure. Pendulums coordinate the existence of organized structures. Enslavement of will, intention. The structure teaches you to want what it needs. In order to get rid of the structure's zombifying influence, you have to choose the part of a playing spectator. The process of goal attaining is what drives evolution. In a structure, man loses himself and no longer understands who he is and what he wants. Dependence arises because the arrow of attention gets caught in a pendulum's noose of capture. In order to get off the needle, you have to switch your attention, occupy it with something else, change the scenario and scenery. The charisma of an era is attracted by the intention of a group of people in the form of a cloud from the space of variance. When receiving any energy credit, proclaim your declaration of intention. You cannot beat a pendulum. You have to either abandon the dangerous game or start your own, so that you become the pendulum's favorite. In order to start your own game, you have to let yourself be you. End summary.